Since Princess Diana's death more than 20 years ago, new information about her life has always been shared. Now, Lady Sarah McCorquedale is said to have said that she played a part in Princess Diana and Prince Charles's love story. But there's a twist in this story, so we'll find out how much of it is true. Subscribe to the channels for more videos like this. To her husband, Neil McCorquedale. According to reports, Neil is a solid, steady, private, quiet, and funny guy who is the perfect match for Sarah. But before Neil, there was Charles. Sarah, Princess Diana's sister, and King Charles, who was the Prince of Wales at the time, had a short relationship in 1977, when they were both in their 20s. Sarah caught Prince Charles's eye at a house party at Windsor Castle for Royal Ascot. Prince Charles liked Sarah's sparking and irreverent wit, and they made each other laugh. Their short but healthy relationship included polo matches and an invitation to Balmoral for a while. In the late 1970s, she was the subject of rumors that Charles was planning to marry her. However, those rumors ended quickly in 1978, after a skiing trip to Clusters, where Sarah said in an interview that she wasn't in love with Charles. She called herself a whirlwind type of lady, while Charles likes things to happen slowly. There had been courtships. I can promise you that if Prince Charles and I were going to get engaged, it would have happened by now. Sarah also said that she liked being with Charles but had no plans to marry him, adding, "I'm not in love with." When she told him, "I wouldn't marry anyone I didn't love," whether he was the dust man or the King of England, Charles is said to have broken up with her. However, both sisters stayed close to him and even went to his 30th birthday party at Buckingham Palace in November. Here's where things get interesting. She later took pride in being the matchmaker for Diana and Prince Charles. Princess Diana, then 16 years old, and Prince Charles, then 29 years old, met at a dance at Althorpe. At the time, Charles was visiting Sarah at their 1,500-acre family estate in Northamptonshire, and he turned to Diana to show her around the Althorpe photo gallery. After a great night, they didn't talk to each other again until July 1980, when they both went to A. Charles and Diana were invited to spend the weekend at the family home of their mutual friend Philip Depp Pass. A lot had changed for Charles in the previous 3 years. For example, as heir to the throne, his family put a lot of pressure on him to find a wife quickly. In his age group and social circle, the options were getting thinner, and his longtime love Camilla Parker B.S. was married. Also, Charles had suffered a devastating personal setback when his mentor Lord Mountbatten died the summer before. When Diana found herself with Charles again, it seemed like the perfect time. She thought that the prince could use some tenderness. Sarah may have had an academic transcript the size of an index card, but her emotional radar was at full speed. She knew that the best way to break through the royal reserve of the heir to the throne was to appeal to. The fact that Diana told Charles he was lonely and needed some care is said to have touched him deeply. The two were said to have a deep bond, and things moved quickly between them in September of that year. Diana was photographed at Balmoral, the royal family's private estate in the Scottish Highlands, in August 1987. After the Queen pushed her, Charles proposed to Diana at Windsor Castle, and she said yes. At the time, it was said that the couple had only been out about a dozen times. After that, the press focused a lot on the 19-year-old, but she handled a lot of it with grace. She once broke down in tears while driving. "I know they have to do it, but sometimes I wish they wouldn't." Diana moved from a small apartment to Clarence's house. In February, they told everyone they were engaged. 4 years later, when Charles and Diana gave their engagement interview, they were asked about their engagement. When they met for the first time at Althorpe, Charles remembered somewhat bluntly, I remember thinking what a very jolly, amusing, and attractive 16-year-old she was. Diana was totally smitten as she went on and on about how awesome Charles was. Charles was pretty amazing. When asked if they were in love, Diana answered right away, of course. Charles, on the other hand, gave a dull answer. Whatever in love means. Charles and Diana's wedding was the most famous event of the 20th century, with thousands of people there to cheer them on. What the excited crowd didn't know was that Diana's heart had already been broken before she even got out of her Cinderella-like carriage. As the royal wedding got closer, tensions rose. The country was spellbound by the shy but beautiful future Princess of Wales. For many, it seemed like a real-life fairy tale, but for Diana, the magic was quickly lost. As usual, Charles kept doing his royal duties while the wedding preparations were going on. 5 weeks after giving Diana the beautiful sapphire ring, he went on a tour of Australia and New Zealand. Any newly engaged couple would naturally feel nervous about being on opposite sides of the world, but Diana had an extra layer of sadness waiting for her. So how did she go from having butterflies in her stomach to barely getting any? According to a very popular fan theory, Charles and Diana had very different impressions of each other. Diana was deeply in love, but Charles' feelings were not as strong. In one instance, insiders said that when Diana went to the airport to say goodbye to Charles, the phone rang. It was Camilla on the other end, wanting to say goodbye. Instead of ignoring the call to focus on saying goodbye, Diana said goodbye to Charles. Diana was crushed and felt like she had to leave when he turned her down. 10 years later, she talked about that moment as the one that broke her heart. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be the last. There were rumors that Charles used Diana and didn't love her. He had no plans to keep his marriage vows. Many of his fans believed that he only wanted his heir and then went off with Camilla, the woman he had always loved. As you may know, Charles's relationship with Camilla ended when she got married. Andrew Parker B.S. in the summer of 1973. Camilla settled into her new life as a wife and mother. Her friendship with Charles stayed friendly over the next few years, but they started dating again soon after the birth of Camilla's second child, Laura, in early 1978. In 1979, Charles turned to Camilla for comfort after the death of Lord Mountbatten. Camilla's husband cheated on her, and she felt lonely in her marriage, so she turned to Charles for comfort. But Camilla knew that once Charles got married, the physical side of their relationship would end. She wasn't fooling herself into thinking it would go on. When Camilla realized Diana was jealous of her, she took a step back, saying, "Well, there were 3 of us in this." It was a bit crowded, and she talked openly about having postpartum depression a few days before the wedding. There seemed to be trouble in paradise after Diana found a bracelet Charles had made for Camilla, but her sisters said it was too late to call off the wedding, even though they were having problems. Diana walked down the aisle in July 1981 at St. Paul's Cathedral, where about 750 million people watched. Diana wore a dress by Elizabeth and David Emanuel to her wedding at Westminster Abbey. But not all fairy tales end happily ever after. As you may have guessed, Diana and Charles's marriage was troubled and their divorce was messy. But Diana and Charles are said to have had some genuine moments of happiness together, like when they had their children in June 1982. They had their first child, Prince William, and then their second child, Prince Harry, 2 years later. But things quickly went bad for Diana because she had postpartum depression. She would wake up feeling like she didn't want to get out of bed because she felt like no one understood her. She told the BBC in 1995 that she was just very, very low in herself. The couple was said to be very unhappy in their marriage, but that's not all. She has been suffering from BMI for more than 3 years and says she only hurt herself on purpose to tell her side of the story. Is the House of Windsor so weak that it can be both? Charles and Diana's extramarital affairs. Charles started dating Celia Parker again, and Diana is said to have had several affairs of her own. In a letter to an unknown recipient, Charles wrote about how awful incompatibility is and how terrible it can be for the players. Charles and Camilla first saw each other again in 1986 when he invited her and her husband to his home. After meeting Andrew for tea at Highgrove, Charles and Camilla became friends, and by 1987 they were dating again. Andrew was still cheating on Camilla, and she didn't feel loved or cared for by him in their marriage. At the same time, Diana was said to have been having affairs with several men, starting with her bodyguard Barry Minocki and then with James, a former British Army cavalry officer. This is when Charles is said to have gone back to. Camilla and Charles were living very separate lives at this point. Over the next few years, there were rumors that Charles and Diana were having marital problems. The rumors started to spread when Diana didn't join Charles on the family's annual summer vacation to boost morale. During a number of public appearances, they seemed distant and unhappy to put on a united front. The couple took a vacation together in South Korea in November 1992 and looked so unhappy that the British press called them the Glooms. Just like that, a fairy tale marriage turned into an arrangement. The next month, Prime Minister John Major told the House of Commons that the Prince and Princess of Wales were divorcing. He read from a statement from Buckingham Palace that the decision was mutual. Neither Charles nor Diana said anything about the rumored split. Instead, Charles went to a business luncheon and Diana went to a clinic in northeast England. Reports say that no third party was involved in the decision. The news of the split came at a time when the monarchy's credibility was at an all-time low due to ongoing scandals involving the wealthy lifestyles of some members. Members of the royal family told the BBC in 1995 that Diana felt deep, profound sadness about their decision. "We had struggled to keep it going, but obviously we'd both run out of steam," Diana said. After agreeing in July, Prince Charles and Princess Diana's divorce was finalized in August 1996. Diana received a large financial settlement, but she lost her Royal Highness status. Tragically, her new, free life after being a princess was cut short by a fatal car accident in Paris a year later, in January 1999. After announcing their engagement on February 10, 2005, Charles and Camilla made their first public appearance together as a couple. They got married a few months later in April at a civil wedding at Windsor Guildhall. The wedding was followed by a service of blessing at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. Many of their fans are still following them today. I wonder what Sarah and Diana's life might have been like if she had played her cards better. But it looks like for Sarah, the real way to happiness was to marry a rich Lincolnshire farmer and live a simple life instead of working on the royal front lines. Neil Edmund McCorquedale in 1980. They chose a simple ceremony, which took place at the small St. Mary's Church near Althorpe. The reception followed at the family estate. On her wedding day, Lady Sarah wore a high-necked lace dress with the famous Spencer family tiara and a classic bouquet of white flowers. The Spencer tiara, which was made by Guards, has an intricate design of stylized flowers set with diamonds and silver settings. It is said to date back to the 18th century and was given to Elizabeth Spencer. Diana's grandmother, Cynthia V.I. Countess Althorpe, got the headpiece as a wedding gift from a distant relative, Lady Sarah Spencer, in 1919. All three of the Spencer sisters wore it on their wedding days, but Frances Shankidd, who married into the Spencer family in 1954, and is married to Spencer and has 3 children with Spencer, didn't wear it. Emily Jane McHale, Celia Rose McCorquedale, and George Edmund McCorquedale. After they got married, Lady Sarah and Diana stayed close. The sisters would take trips with their kids, and Sarah even became one of Diana's women in waiting from 1992 to 1997. This was the opposite of what they did before they got married. Diana looked up to and idolized her sister Sarah as a child, even working as a cleaner at a rental house their father ran. There are rumors that Sarah may have supported Diana by ignoring her love life's ups and downs. Diana once told Sarah that she was the only person she could trust. Sources said that Sarah knew about Diana's affairs. The sisters were very close. Even after Diana died at her funeral, Sarah read a poem in her honor and was also co-executive of in Diana's will and became president of the Diana Princess of Wales Memorial Fund until it closed in 2012. Sarah has stayed close to the royal family and often spends time with her nephews, Prince Harry and William, Prince of Wales. Sarah and Neil now live near Grantham, Lincolnshire, where she served a one-year term as High Sheriff in 2009. Sarah's friends and family threw her a huge party for her 60th birthday to prove that she isn't ready to give up her reputation for being a bit crazy. Diana's close relationship with Sarah extends to her children. Sarah and her other sister, Lady Jane Fellows, are regulars in William and Harry's lives. Sarah was at both of their weddings and the christening of Harry's son Archie in 2019. Many fans believe that Sarah is related to Diana's children. People think that Prince Harry has a close connection to his Spencer family. Not only does Harry's red hair make him look like a Spencer, but he is also said to call his aunts Sarah and Jane red ants. Sarah's children, Emily, George, and Celia, are close with their Windsor cousins. What do you think about this? What do you think Diana's life would have been like if she hadn't met Prince Charles? Leave your answer in the comments below.